The match number 1 between the Springboks and the All Blacks is in the books. A victory to the Springboks at home. And now match 2, just around the corner now. It was a close game, back and forth between the sides. And in this video, we're going to be doing our best to predict what Rassie Erasmus is going to be going with for his team this weekend, match number 2, taking place in Cape Town. But Tim, first match under the belt of the Springboks. They are now 3 from 3 in the Rugby Championship. One more win here should secure the title. Can they do it this weekend at Cape Town Stadium?
I'd like to think they can, but if you look at the previous record actually for the All Blacks and Springboks, particularly in Cape Town, the All Blacks have a pretty good record there, and they have a good fan base as well there. So yeah, you never really count them out, but I'd like to think the Springboks can back up their first one with another. So we'll have to wait and see.
I guess the massive question as well is how many changes will Rassie make up against the Australians in that second test match. After winning the first, they made drastic changes, but history is on the line here. If the Springboks win this game, that is then their longest winning streak ever up against the All Blacks. Also, if they win this game, they retain their number 1 spot in the world rankings and also secure the Rugby Championship. So there's a lot of alsos that can come from this game for the Springboks. Pressure's on Scott Robertson. His side will be announced a little bit later on in the week, but Rassie always getting in early, and we'll try our best to get as close as we can.
Sorry, also, there is also the Freedom Cup as well. We get the Freedom Cup for the first time in a while if we do win as well.
I heard that.
That's right.
But we are filming this video extremely early on in the week. That is due to the early selection that we do see from the Springboks, which does mean at this point we only know of 2 injuries, one of which being physicality, unfortunately having that facial injury up against the All Blacks in match number 1, and the other Kurtley Arunsa out with a concussion. So this early on, making a prediction is always risky because later on we will hear the headlines of what Rassie's thinking about for his selection in match 2, also who else might be injured moving forward. So bear that in mind when seeing our selection. It is not set in stone, and we could see a late change once again, just like last week for Eben Etzebeth. But looking through at your front row, Tim, who have you gone with for the second test match?
Well, the second test match, I've gone with the same front row we saw in the first, with Oxenchair number 1, Bongi Manomi number 2, and Frans Malherbe the number 3. I think these 3 were, solid throughout the day, and they did their job from a scrum standpoint. I think it was pretty even, from both sides, actually, when you look at it within the first half. It was only within the second where the Springboks got a bit more, I'd say, in terms of that kind of set piece. But besides that, I think it was very even between, Tamati Williams and Oxenchair in terms of that battle, as well as Frans Malherbe versus Tyrell Lomax. So I think I want to keep kind of the same front row for the second test.
And there was a drastic difference between the first and second match up against the Australians. We saw that second test match, they were losing a lot more lineouts when Johan Krobler was throwing them. We saw quite a few scrums lost. But then saying that, we also saw the non-contestable scrums in that match between Australia and South Africa as well. But just like yourself, I've gone with the same front row. Oxenchair number 1, Bongi Manomi number 2, and Frans Malherbe as the number 3. A lot was made about Tamati Williams' scrummaging heading into this game, but I think Frans Malherbe, he just showed how strong he is and how class he is in a scrum. He shut it down. I don't think the All Blacks won a penalty advantage too many times throughout this match, maybe the one, but other than that, the Springboks holding strong, and also Mbonambi managing to score himself the first try for the Springboks. Interesting one.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting for sure, because I think when you saw it, just as it happened, I think everyone had the same reaction, okay, it's a try, guaranteed. But then when you saw the replay, and then you saw Jordy Barrett kind of, put his hand out to kind of stop Bongi in the process, it kind of knocked down, he knocked it on, essentially. But I think, the way, I was surprised the TMO didn't even look at it. There were several moments in this game where the TMO, I don't know why they didn't use the TMO. It was kind of strange, actually. There was, one point where Sasha kicked it out on the full, even though it hit Reiko and it should have been a Springboks lineout. It's this was that was another instance. There were moments in this game where the TMO, I thought, could have got a lot more involved, because in the past we've kind of talked about how the TMO kind of gets too much involved, but this time is kind of the opposite way around. But no, in terms of that Bongi try, look, it was not a try, but I can maybe understand that maybe he's grounded it because he's putting the pressure is on. I guess in terms of he's putting downwards pressure on it, so I can understand maybe that's the argument that they've made. But besides that, it's a tough call to kind of go against the All Blacks, I'd say.
Although there were a lot of controversial decisions throughout this game. I know it was talked about for that first rolling maul try that the All Blacks scored out. Tyrell Lomax was in front of Adi Savia at the start of the rolling maul,
Yeah.
although we did also see one later on where a Springbok was in front of Peter Steph So I honestly think at the moment there's a bit of a lottery going on in terms of how the games are going to be officiated. But like I've said many times throughout that live stream as well as afterwards, like those little moments, yes, they can be substantial, but you have to make the most of the time outside of those moments. The All Blacks, they had other chances that I'm sure they would have liked to be able to make the most of. But moving on from, of course, that moment, because it is going to be talked about so much throughout this week, hopefully not too much more on the Kiwi Lads channel, but we'll see. Certainly one that split the opinions of a lot of fans, but something that will not split opinions is who should be starting at number 4 for the Springboks in this game. He is getting also closer to Victor Matfield as the most capped Springbok in Springbok history. He thoroughly deserves it, Eben Etzebeth, the way that he has played for so long. Also coming back into that game up against New Zealand in the first match. He wasn't initially named in the starting lineup, all reserves, taking over the spot of Mako van Staden, and he made a real impact when he made his way off the bench, actually a lot earlier than some would have been anticipating. But Eben Etzebeth, he's got to be somewhere in this 23-man side. If he is match fit and he is available to play in this game. Ruan Nokia, that is who I've given the number 5 jersey. I felt like he had some decent moments. It's a tricky one to find your momentum when you are going on and off the field like he was, because they had to make quite a few changes. Now, Peter Steph I honestly feel like you could once again play him in the locking duo. Maybe they look to put him at 5 if they want to back Ben Jason Dixon, who maybe didn't have the strongest game he could have, but I still think that they may consider giving him some sort of role throughout this contest. But for me in the locking duo, Eben Etzebeth and Ruan Nokia is the way to go.
Yeah, no, I like that duo a lot. I mean, similar to you, I also do have Eben Etzebeth, shocker there. I think he was pretty good off the bench. I mean, I kind of actually forgot that the Boks had him off the bench. Like when Ruan Nokia had to go off, and I was like, oh no, wait, who are we going to bring on here? I was like, oh, you see Eben Etzebeth. I'm like, oh, what a great time to have a player like him call off the bench. So it was good to have him in the game, and he definitely made an impact from an experience standpoint. But yeah, no, he's my number 4 for sure. But to partner him, I actually wanted to originally go with RJ Snyman here, but I'm a bit cautious that he may not be available or not. I think I would have started him if he is available, but because there's a bit of kind of uncertainty if he's available or not, this is actually where I've gone with Salman Morat. I believe he'll have the opportunity here to kind of start in this game because he's coming off his concussion, which he was not allowed obviously to play in the first test against the All Blacks. But I think they'll put him straight into the second test and partner up with Eben Etzebeth there.
So I have a little bit of a question for you there, Tim. If you have gone with him as your number 5, Sia Khaleesi more than likely missing this next game up against the All Blacks, is Salman Morat your captain? Or is it Eben Etzebeth? Or is it Peter Steph?
That's what I actually would give it to Peter Steph. I was actually going to answer this question later, but I think I'd say Peter Steph. I think he's the player who, I think in every game he's played so far, he's been amazing, and I think I still think he's been the best player throughout this Rugby Championship, if I had to name one right now. So I think that's the reason why you kind of go with him as captain if you do have that option with Sia Khaleesi also maybe out.
And like Rassi Erasmus has said, Peter Steph he's been passed around the positions. He's been 4, he's been 5, he's been 7. And, to be a player that can adapt so quickly and still have a phenomenal game from no matter where you are playing, that is just a testament to the type of player that he is and the kind of workhorse that he is, that no matter where he is, he's still getting turnovers, he's still putting in those big hits. The question is, the question's pretty easy because you haven't got him in the lock and duo. You got him in that number 7 jersey, I assume, for your loose forward trio.
Yeah. Yeah, he's my number 7, 100%. Like I said, he would be my captain if Khaleesi is out. And for that case, I've kind of considered, I believe both of us have considered Khaleesi out due to what he got in that first test. And this is actually where I've gone with a bold call here, but I've actually brought in Mako van Staden to start at the number 6. I know he wasn't a part of the test, of course. Eben Etzebeth came in as a last minute change, but I felt Rassi will kind of reward kind of Mako van Staden just for kind of being kind of a gent, actually just kind of allowing Etzebeth to kind of come off the bench in that first one. So I think he's going to give him the opportunity here to start, and I think he'll do a good job there. So he'll be number 6. Peter Steph the number 7, and then I've gone with Jasper Wiese, the number 8. I thought he was a monster in that game. He was just incredible. It's just great to have a player like Jasper Wiese because he just reminds you of how good he is as a player. And just his carrying was great. I thought he was good within the breakdown. I think he made a key turnover, I believe, in the breakdown, if I'm not mistaken. And what a player to watch.
And it's been a long time since we've been able to watch him. Of course, getting suspended from the Gallagher Premiership. That felt like an eternity ago that one took place. But just like yourself, I have decided to give him another chance here. But first of all, number 6, I have also gone with Mako van Staden. Like you said, the fact that he was in that initial 23-man side, Ebenezer was match fit, so they said, right, Marco, you're going to have to go out of this one. And from what I've heard, he said, yep, fair enough. I guess, like, you're not going to argue if they're trying to put Ebenezer in your place. Like, that's just a death wish if you're really trying to keep yourself in there. But he will be my starting 6 for this game. I feel like other than him, maybe Quacker Smith could be your starting 6, but Elric Lowe's more of your 8. You've also got a couple of those other options. Jansi van Rensburg maybe could be in there as either a lock or a 6 for this game, but we just haven't really seen any minutes from that man. So I think Mako van Staden is a little bit of the safer option. Just like yourself, I have got Peter Seftotoy as my number 7, and then number 8, Jasper Wiese, for a first game back after so long being out. Yes, there were a couple mistakes there, but overall a really solid performance and a great game to make your way back into the Springbok side. Now we move on to the 9-10 combination. This is where we could see changes for the Springboks, but I've gone with the same. I feel like that combination of Kobus Reinach as well as Sasha Feinberg, Ngome Zulu, it worked well. And Sasha, you wouldn't think this was his first game up against the All Blacks. He played it like he was a veteran of the game. He was doing smart kicks in behind. He was getting his passing right. His defense, I still think, is underrated. The fact that he was muscling up when Geordie Barrett was trying to run straight at him and over the top of him was incredibly impressive. So I would say he's done enough to earn that starting 10 spot. Now, they have still got Andre Pollard and Mani Libok as 2 other options that could take that 10 jersey. In terms of the 9, they've got Grant Williams or Jaden Hendrickson. So there is a chance that we do see one of those other 2 options in either of those positions get the chance. But like I mentioned, there's so much on the line in terms of records, in terms of championships, and everything of that nature. So that is why I'd stick with the same and build that chemistry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same reasons as what you just said is the exact reason why I've also kept the same pair of Kobus Reinach number 9, Sasha Feinberg, Ngome Zulu number 10. I just think those 2 just, I mean, particularly Sasha, just, man, he just stepped up. And again, this is what, pressure makes diamonds, and he was just unbelievable in that game. And I mean, that kick he made from 61 meters out was just ridiculous. I kind of brought me back memories of like Pat Labby kind of back in the day winning that. But again, this time it was like, in the 10th minute. So it didn't really have that kind of, I guess, dramatic impact in the game of what you would like it to have. But still.
He did miss a late kick, unlike Lambie.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair. But no, Sasha, just what a player. And I think his kicking was just so on point in this game. Like the one that I was like really impressed by. I mean, like, I know it's a little thing to think about, but it was actually at the very end of the game where it was a kicking battle between him and McKenzie, and he actually kicked a ball. And normally, it's one of those dangerous kicks where you're kicking from the side, and it can easily go out on the full, and you bring it back towards like where you've kicked it. But the ball just stayed in touch and actually went towards the right. So it meant that the ball was just perfect. The kick, I was like, wow, that's just having that kick, like the accuracy, just making sure it's on point. I was like, fair play. Like he stepped up to the occasion, man. And he that's the reason why I picked him at 10. It's just simple as that. And then Kobus Reinach, like you said, I thought he did a pretty good game for the Boks. And I think when you have like Grant Williams and Jed Hendrickson, who's still a bit, you just don't know what's going to happen with him, if he'll be included or not, then I think Reinach so far is the number 1 option.
Alrighty, so now we move on to another question, which is that midfield combination. You've kept the same 9-10. Have you done the same with your midfield in this contest?
I haven't. This is where I've made a bold change here. I've gone with Demi Lende at 12, and you know it. I've gone with Lakanyawan at number 13. I want to see him at least get 1 game against the All Blacks. Just want to see kind of continue that record of kind of good games against the All Blacks. So I'd like to see him get involved in this one. Again, there could be the idea of where maybe he goes at 13 and maybe Jesse Krill shifts towards the 14 because, with Curly Lorenza, not available, you can maybe go with that option. But I just don't think they'll do it. I'll be very surprised, but hey, you never know. It'll be intriguing to see how that works against the All Blacks. But I think it's too risky. So that's the reason why I went with Demi Delende and then Kanyawan.
So what would you say is your main factor for switching out Creole rather than Delende? Because we did see Lukanyawan play 12 the last game that he played for the Springboks.
Yeah, to be fair, maybe that's the case. I mean, that is a good point. I think like Demi Delende is just one of those players where you really can't take him out when you're going into the All Blacks. Like, he's a battering ram, and it's kind of like when you have someone like Geordie Barrett, against you, you need to kind of make sure you contain him like as best as you can, because he is a very important player for the All Blacks. So I think Damien Dunley is kind of like the weapon that the Springboks can use in that case. But I think that 13, you can kind of switch it around a bit because, there's a lot of players who are just outstanding really for the Boks in that position. So there's a lot of kind of depth they can use there. And I think Lukhanyo, I think he's played enough games now to kind of be rewarded kind of going into the second test. So I'd like to see it happen.
Righty, so for me, I have gone with Damien de Allende as my number 12. Number 13, Lukhanyo. I have also made that same switch. Now I'm going to explain why I have decided to go with Creel out rather than Damien de Allende. Turnovers. Damien de Allende getting 2 crucial ones for the Springboks. When New Zealand were on hot attack, he just locked himself over that ball, wasn't going anywhere. And that is a great way to shut down a counter-attack. And he's just one of those players, like you said, he can make your meters. Creel's got that pace, and he is certainly going to be a very good option for the Springboks. But I also feel like he has had quite a bit of work to do. Even in those games up against Australia, he played both of them. This kind of feels like the game that is his stand-down period, if that makes sense. Unless, of course, they want to keep it the same. And in that case, they would go, once again, with Creel and Damien de Allende. But we move on to the back 3, and they cannot be the same for this contest due to Kurtley Arendse unfortunately suffering that head knock. He will not be playing in this game, but instead that number 11 jersey now wide open. For myself, I have gone with Makazole Mapimpi. Now, you could also argue someone like a Kane Moody, maybe Zealand Colby transfers to that left wing for this contest, but I still feel like Makazole Mapimpi, he's earned that jersey. At the end of the day, if it wasn't for Kurtley Arendse, we'd still be seeing Makazole Mapimpi every single week, more than likely, playing in that left wing spot. And he hasn't really done anything wrong when he puts on the Springbok kit. So it would make sense to give him that opportunity again up against the All Blacks here. Number 14, this is actually where I've stuck with Zealand Colby. Now, out of the 2 wing positions, this is where I was closest to putting in Kane Moody, just to give him some sort of minutes. Although they also do see him as a long-term centre. So I thought maybe it's a bit of a waste playing him once out on the wing when you'd be better off putting him eventually back in the centres. Maybe we even see the midfield combo of Easthuizen and Moody. We've seen it before. Could this be the game that you unleash it? Probably not. I feel like that's something you'd save for the Argentines, but you just never know with Rassie. We could see 15 changes to his starting lineup and reserves in this game. You just never know. But number 14, I'll stick with Zealand Colby. That would mean that he has played every game of the Rugby Championship, and he hasn't really played any of them badly. He's a great player, very unlucky not to score in the game up against the All Blacks. I think the only thing that was stopping him was the bounce of the ball, because any time he was down the wing and that ball was kicked in behind, it just seemed to avoid him. Unfortunately, always going into touch. And then at number 15, this is where I really wanted to go with Willie Leroux, because he didn't play in that first match up against the All Blacks. But I also do think these are great games for these young players to get minutes up against top opposition. So this is where I've gone with Apalele Fasi. I think other than that yellow card, he had a pretty solid game. Defensively, you could say there were a couple errors, but at the same time, he was on a hiding to nothing out wide with like 2 or 3 New Zealand players running at him. He drifted inwards a couple times, which did leave the space on the outside for Caleb Clark. But overall, I think Apalele Fasi, the longer he's out there on the field for the South Africans, the better he will become. And that is why I give him another big game here up against the All Blacks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, yeah, similar to you. I've also gone with Makazole Mapimpi, the number 11. I think it's just his time to kind of get that number 11 jersey. Just he deserves it for what he's produced in the past as well throughout this year so far. But yeah, for the 14, I've also gone with Zealand Colby. And yeah, look, it's one of those where I could have made the switch, like I said before, where I put him at the 11, put Jesse Curl at the 14, and have Lukhanyo up at the 13. But I don't think Rassie will do that. I think he'll kind of go with his kind of a more built kind of lineup there. And I think Zealand Colby had a good game. I think a moment where he kind of shoved off Scott Barrett was kind of impressive. Like, I was like, oh, jeez, it's another player he just like shoves off. Like, because he's done that several times in the game, like where he has like, I could probably name like a list of 5 people who are just, they're units, but he just somehow just is able to like just shove off and then just go to the next guy, just run along. So it's it's impressive stuff by him. But no, he's number 14. But this is actually where I have gone with Willie Leroux, the number 15 jersey. I think this is the one where look, Fassi had a good game overall. I think Fassi did have a good game. Like you said, besides the yellow card, he was pretty good, I think, throughout it. But I think there were moments in it where I think the only thing I would say I had against him, and unfortunately, this is just the reason why I'm not selecting him, is his kicking. I thought his kicking just had to be slightly better than what it was. I mean, there was like one moment where, I mean, he literally he called the mark and then he took it very quickly, just kicked it out like literally like what? It was like 2 meters away. So I was like, okay, what are you doing? You can be a bit more patient with it, or like, and that's where you need a bit more experience in that position. So that's kind of why I want to bring someone like Willie LaRue back in the side. And again, he just offers you that play. He's just a great player to watch. So he's someone I want to see in that 15 jersey as well.
And it is pretty rough for Willie LaRue if he does end up missing 2 games in a row for the Springboks, definitely because he is uninjured. And that is something that, I feel those backs for the South Africans, there are little injuries here and there that they have been dealing with, but he is one of those players who's been able to avoid that. Damian Valimza, not so lucky. He's missed a lot of time from that 15 jersey. But Willie LaRue, like you've said, he's played well up against New Zealand in the past. He's just a good, cool, calm head to have at the back, and him partnered with Makazole Mapimpi, as well as having Lucanio Armin there. I do think if they go with Willie LaRue, there is a chance we might see Hondre Pollard as that starting 10. Maybe they go with that experience pairing just because of the minutes that they've had together. Perhaps they look at Sasha Feinberg and Ngome Zulu alongside Apalele Fassi as that future pairing, whereas Pollard and Willie as possibly the present. But looking through at the bench now, 6-2 split, I assume, is what you've gone with here. The question is, are the All Blacks going to match that for this contest? They did get out-muscled off the bench. The Springboks sped up this game at altitude in the later stages. Perhaps that is something New Zealand need to look at. Can they get away with going with a 6-2 in the second test? So for yourself, who have you gone with as your front row replacements?
Yeah, so off the bench, this is where I've gone with Micah Mark to come off the bench. He made an impact as normal and kind of what you expect. I would say like there were moments actually where he came off and his line-out accuracy wasn't as good as what it normally is. Like, again, that could just be like the line-out just not functioning as what you want it to be. But besides that, I think he had a pretty good kind of good game off the bench. And then, with the replacement props here, this is where I've gone with Gerhard Stinkap. I thought he had a pretty impressive game actually coming off the bench, as well as Vincent Koch there. So I've gone with an unchanged front row there off the bench.
So for me, I have gone with Malcolm Marx once again at number 16. Just a really good impact player. Like you said, lineouts at times were a bit scrappy, but he also still just presented so much when he was out there on the field and seemed to lead in terms of those guys who made their way off the bench later on in the game, just seemed to be fired up, ready to go for those last 20 or so minutes. And little did we know how crucial those last 20 were going to be, having a little bit more forward momentum for the Springboks at times, and then that rolling maul near the end to help them get the try. Stephen Kitsoff is who I've gone with as my number 17. Now, he was released to play in the Currie Cup. He's playing, when we're filming this, in about 4 hours' time. But I'm hoping he gets out of that game injury-free, and then Rassi will bring him back in, perhaps to get some minutes under his belt before heading into Argentina. Now, I do think he'll play at least one match up against the Argentines, but I do think that this could also be a great game to give him a few minutes under his belt before heading into those Los Pumas games. Vincent Koch is my number 18. I would have loved to make a little bit more of a switch here in terms of my props. Maybe the hooker, just because it is very stock standard, I guess you could say. But at the same time, after watching that second game up against the Australians and seeing that new side slightly struggle a little bit, I just feel like this isn't the game to chuck them all back in the deep end, even though it would be great experience to learn from if they were thrown into this case. But now we move on to the other 3 forward replacements. For myself, I have got Salman Murat as my number 19. Number 20, Eldrick Lowe. I thought that he was really strong off the bench, having some good running meters. If it wasn't for Visa playing so well, I would have said Eldrick Lowe to start at 8 for this week up against the All Blacks. I feel like he almost earned it, but then at the same time, Jasper Visa, he was good enough that you can't take him out. But Eldrick Lowe still earning his spot in my Springboks 23. And then number 21, this is where, no surprises, it's Kwagga Smith. The man scored the try late in the game. He's just so good. We say it every single lineup prediction. We say it every single review. We say it any time we get the chance to. He's just so bloody good at coming off the bench and causing opposition problems. And it's going to be no different in this contest. When the All Blacks are starting to tire, that's when Kwagga Smith starts to fire, and he will be on fire in Cape Town once again for this match.
Yeah,
I became a rapper there for a second, Tim.
I know. I was like, man, he's spitting some bars here. But no, I mean, I'm not going to spit some bars like you just did there. But I will go with Ruan Norte to be the replacement lock there for myself. Then following that, this is where I've gone with Quagga Smith and then Eric Lowe to finish it off. I was considering Ben Jason Dixon because I feel he's a bit hard done by. Because I could just go Ben Jason Dixon and then Quagga Smith. But like yourself, I think Eric Lowe I think he deserves it. I think he does deserve it. So that's the reason why I've come with him there.
Righty, so we got some pretty similar looking lineup so far. We've got only 2 positions left, which I feel like will be extremely similar here as well.
Yes.
We might as well just go through them. Number 22, Grant Williams.
Yep.
Number 23, Andre Pollard.
Indeed. Yeah.
No surprises there in terms of the Springbok backs. Now, this is also where I wanted to put Kane and Moody. I don't know why, but I just wanted to have him somewhere in this 23, but I couldn't find anywhere to put him. First, I looked in the centres, couldn't get him in there. Then I looked at 11, couldn't get him in there. 14, couldn't get him in there. Yeah. And then off the bench at 23, Andre Pollard. You want that stability and that little bit of security, just in case Sasha Feinberg, Ngome Zulu doesn't have as strong of a contest. Then you haven't really got too many other options in terms of that goal kicking, although Cheslin Colby isn't too bad at slotting them over when he needs to, but Andre Pollard, you'd still say he's safe as houses. So that is who I'd have as the number 23, and who I think Rassie Erasmus will go with, I should mention, seeing as that is what this video is based upon. But nonetheless, we do thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let us know who you think Rassie Erasmus will be going with in the Springboks lineup down in the comments below. We don't have to wait too long until this lineup is announced. It's only a couple days away, and when it is, of course, we will have the video coming out on the channel. But be sure to check out Rugbyitch's YouTube channel. His link will be in the description as well as the comment section. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we will see you all for the next one.